I'm 78 years old, and I need to say something out loud before my body decides it's done listening to me. I didn't lose my children when my health failed. I lost them long before that. I just didn't know it at the time. I'm not telling this story to ease my conscience. That part of me is already tired. I'm telling it because time has narrowed, and when that happens, the truth stops being polite. These days, my mornings are slow, not peaceful, just slow. I wake up before the sun, not because I want to, but because my body no longer understands rest. The house is quiet in a way that feels permanent, not the quiet of sleep, the quiet of absence. I sit at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I forget to drink. Sometimes I look at my phone, sometimes I don't. It's not that I'm waiting for it to ring. I already know it won't. I have children. I always hesitate when I say that now. They're alive, they have jobs, families of their own. From the outside, everything looks fine. But emotionally, I lost them years ago, decades maybe. That's the part people don't talk about. They think loss is loud, a funeral, a hospital room, a final breath. But the worst losses happen quietly, while everyone is still breathing. When I was younger, I believed I was doing the right things. I worked, I provided, I stayed busy. I told myself that was love. In my 20s, I was full of energy and urgency. I had plans, goals, a sense that life was something to be built quickly before it slipped away. I grew up in a time where being a good parent meant being responsible, not necessarily present. I married young. We weren't particularly romantic, but we were committed. We talked about stability more than happiness. That felt mature back then. When the first child came, I remember holding them and feeling terrified. Not of failing them emotionally, of failing to provide. That fear never really left me, it just changed shape. I worked longer hours, took promotions I didn't enjoy. I missed dinners, but I brought home groceries. I missed bedtime, but I paid the bills. I told myself, this is temporary. I said, when things settle down, I'll be more present. I believed that with my whole heart. When the kids were small, they still reached for me. They still wanted to show me drawings, tell me stories that went nowhere. I listened halfway, I nodded, I smiled. My mind was always somewhere else. I didn't think that mattered. I thought love was something they would feel automatically, just because I was there in the house. As they grew older, their voices changed. They stopped repeating themselves when I didn't really listen. They learned which parts of themselves were worth sharing and which weren't. I didn't notice that shift when it happened. That's the thing about gradual loss. There's no moment you can point to and say, that's when it broke. There were missed school events. Not all of them, just enough. There were conversations I postponed. Later, I said, we'll talk later. Later became next week. Next week became never. I remember one evening in particular. One of my children stood in the doorway of my office. They wanted to talk, I could see it on their face. I told them I was busy. Not harshly, not angrily, just distracted. They said, okay, and walked away. I don't remember what I was working on that night. But I remember that doorway. By the time I noticed the distance, it was already familiar. They weren't angry with me, that would have been easier. They were simply elsewhere. Teenage years came and went. I thought the silence was normal, I thought it was just age. I told myself they'd come back when they were older. I didn't realize that relationships don't pause. They either deepen or thin. And ours had been thinning for years. I stayed busy. Busy became my personality. I mistook exhaustion for purpose. I mistook responsibility for connection. There were moments I could have chosen differently. Small moments, ordinary ones. A conversation at the dinner table I didn't start. A weekend I chose, work over sitting with them. A question I didn't ask because I was tired. None of those moments felt important at the time. That's why they were dangerous. By the time my health began to fail, the emotional distance was already set. The diagnosis didn't change our relationship. It just exposed it. When I first got sick, there was concern. Calls, messages, offers of help. But concern is not closeness. It's a response, not a relationship. As my strength faded, I noticed something unsettling. They didn't really talk to me about themselves. They talked around me. Updates, logistics, polite check-ins. No depth, no mess. I realized then that I had trained them well. I had taught them I was reliable, but not available. Present, but not reachable. There was no dramatic confrontation. No moment where anyone said, "You failed us." That would have almost been a relief. Instead, there was just a quiet understanding settling into my bones. This is what remains. I tried, in my own clumsy way, to bridge the gap. I asked more questions. I listened harder. But relationships don't respond well to panic. You can't rush intimacy at the end the way you postponed it at the beginning. They were kind to me. That's the hardest part. Kindness without closeness feels like standing outside your own house. There are things I will never know about my children. Not because they are hiding them, but because the window closed. I won't know the private fears they carry, the versions of themselves they don't show the world, the thoughts they save for someone who truly knows them. That place was available to me once. I just didn't sit there. Now my days are simpler. Pain narrows your world, so does age. I think a lot, not about success or legacy, about moments. I replay ordinary scenes in my mind. Not the big milestones, the small, quiet chances I overlooked. I don't hate my younger self. That would be too easy. I understand him. He was doing what he thought was right. He believed love could wait. That's the lie I want to tell you about. Love does not wait. Connection does not pause until you have more time. People don't stay open forever. I assumed my children would always be there, emotionally available, ready to reconnect when I finally slowed down. I was wrong. They built full lives without needing that closeness from me. Not out of cruelty, out of necessity. That's not something you can undo with regret. There are things time can heal. Distance is not always one of them. I don't have many years left, I know that. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of having lived a life where the most important relationships were treated as secondary tasks. If you're listening to this, I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I don't need that. I just want you to understand something I learned too late. Presence is not something you schedule for later. It's something you practice while it still matters. I don't mean grand gestures. I mean attention. I mean listening when it's inconvenient. I wish I had understood that showing up emotionally is a skill, not a personality trait. You don't get credit for intending to be there someday. I wish I had known that being needed feels good, but being known feels better. And the two are not the same. If this sounds familiar, I hope you sit with it. Not in panic, not in guilt. Just in honesty. There are things I can still do. I can love quietly. I can accept what is. But there are things I cannot fix. And I carry that knowledge with me now, every day. When my time comes, I don't know who will be at my bedside. I know they will care. I don't know if they will feel close. That's a different thing. If this meant something to you, sit with it. Talk to the people you assume will always be there. Not because you should, but because one day you might realize you waited too long. I'm 78 years old. This is the truth. I finally stopped avoiding like and subscribe.